The Greatest Showman. Um, let's see here. If any of you guys have been following me on Instagram over the last few months, then you've probably seen on several posts about my excitement for this movie. Especially because of the amazing soundtrack. I really wish we can actually do a review of the soundtrack, track by track, of how good I thought that soundtrack was. There was, but unfortunately, well, one of the posts, I'll talk about a post I wrote. The very first one I said was, I really hope that this movie is halfway as good as this soundtrack. So that's all it has to do is reach halfway
To what the soundtrack gives
to what
me.
the soundtrack was.
Uh-huh.
And then as soon as I actually went to the theater, I took a picture of the ticket stub and said, please be at least halfway, or at least be as good as the soundtrack. I think I actually raised my expectations a little more for that post. Because I got a little more excited. And were those expectations met? The answer is no. Neither of those expectations. It was not even halfway as good as the soundtrack. Now,
I love it when movies don't meet their expectations. I love it.
You're a terrible critic. Okay.
No, not for me. I hate it when it happens to me.
Okay.
But when it happens to other people,
That's
I get
true.
to enjoy their misery.
That's true.
For weeks, he was like, I hope this movie's good.
Oh, yeah, I've even mentioned it on the show at least a couple
Yeah, he even
times.
said drop the Oscar word once or twice.
But man, that soundtrack though. it's
Hashtag
pretty
that
fire.
soundtrack though.
See,
Pretty fire.
now we're going to the review for this movie here. The acting was amazing.
Okay.
Everybody played very interesting characters.
Mm-hmm.
It had some of them were fictionalized, like Zac Efron's character, completely made up. There was a couple other people that were part of this circus that were completely made up. That was fine. I knew this was going to be something not based into reality.
It wasn't a historical drama.
Right. It wasn't going to be. Well, it could have been. Now, anyways, everybody, like Zac Efron, Zendaya, they all were shining as far as their
Performances.
they delivered. They came and gave their absolute best performance. But unfortunately, the story was absolute garbage that they had to play. I mean, Hugh Jackman was amazing. There was so many great performances. Rebecca Ferguson was something that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She played such an interesting character in this movie. She played an opera singer. I mean, it wasn't really opera because there's no actual opera singer, but there was opera in this movie. But they called her an opera singer.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like P.T. Barnum's muse that he ended up because he was actually married to Michelle Williams' character, and which made it for what would have made for some very interesting conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But any chance that this movie ever had for conflict, for some kind of emotional pull on you, it deflates very quickly. Any conflict is resolved very quickly, or it just doesn't come back again, which was not interesting, which is upsetting. So, any chance for some heaviness
Was completely thrown away.
Yes.
They're just like, keep it light and keep it moving.
Yes. I mean, it's like they had an interesting story written before, and then they turned in these songs for the soundtrack, and they said, oh my God, these are amazing songs. This should be reached to a bigger audience, so let's make this PG. As PG as we can, so families can come in droves and come see this movie.
And then we'll release it at Christmas time.
We'll release it at Christmas time, and we'll make a sing-along track, because everybody's going to come see this movie. So let's take out all that drama, the dramatic parts of this, and let's keep this light.
Let's keep this light, fluffy. We got Pitch Perfect to compete against.
Yeah, so they present these. I don't know. Am I coming in well? Am I balanced here?
Yeah, you're sounding pretty good to me.
Okay, I just feel like it's not booming a little bit.
Yeah, I'm picking you up pretty well.
Okay, all right. Anyways, yeah, it presents those dramatic elements in pieces, and then nothing ever
Happens.
like I
with
said,
it.
never ever happens.
It's just like, oh, what happens to that plot line that was back there?
And by the way, what's some of the best parts of a circus are the performances. And those performances take a lot of work and a lot of practice and a lot of it's a lifetime of these practice that these people do.
They've worked their whole lives for this
The
moment.
circus elements of this movie are very little. There's very little elements of circus in this movie, and the performance parts are so flashy and in your face that they don't impress. And
they try too hard.
And yes, well, no, yeah, they try. I don't know if you try too hard, you just can't really see them. It's so much noise, is what it looks like.
It's too distracting.
Yes, to distract from, I guess, the weaknesses of the actual circus performance.
It's like, oh, we ain't got nothing here, guys. Quick, just throw more glitter and confetti in this scene.
Yes, exactly. So there's that. That's a problem. And anybody that was worried about the treatment of animals, how they were going to address that, they addressed that by the animals being CGI. And
no need to talk about mistreatment of animals if none of the animals are actually there.
It's very obvious that they're CGI animals. In fact,
look at P.T. Bottom bringing this PS3 horse.
Yes. So there's that also. And oh my gosh, I was by about the 20-minute mark in this movie, I realized because like I said, everybody brought their A game in this movie except the director. All of the faults I have in this movie fall on him, and that's pretty sad because this is a first-time director. And you had A-list talent in there. You have Hugh Jackman, Michelle Williams. All these Academy Award winning and nominated actors in here. And like I said, they appear to have been ready to perform for this movie.
Maybe they were acting in a different movie, but the edit changed it into something else.
I don't know, man. There's so much about even the editing and how these songs were addressed in the movie. It took all the excitement out of some of these songs, even some of the performance. I'm a musician and a singer, so I know how hard some of these they had to work for some of these songs to make them effective and emotional and all that. The performances were all there in the songs, but they were not brought to life in the movie. It was really, there was a few very good scenes. The good scenes. There's one with Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron that do a duet in a bar. Was really well done. I liked that scene.
Is that the one I like?
Yeah. And then there's another song in the movie that was. I want to get this woman's name right. He's
trying real hard not to use profanity, guys. That's why he's looking for his words.
No.
He was angry before we started, but now he has to be calm, cool, and collected for the camera.
Okay, it was a song that was sung by Lauren Allred. It's called Never Enough. But the person performing this song without the actual singing, it was lip syncing, was Rebecca Ferguson. Now, Rebecca Ferguson's acting, I never had a problem with. The character she played, she did a very great job. But this is one of the most impactful songs in the entire movie. It's supposed to bring, it's such a great ballad, and everybody is supposed to feel something during this, because this is one of those, this big scenes in the movie where Hugh Jackman becomes infatuated with this character, and we're supposed to feel that also. And it doesn't work because it's not Rebecca Ferguson singing. The voice doesn't match her. She's not bringing the type of performance that somebody that would actually be singing this song was feeling and match, which takes you out of it, which is sad. There's still a very emotional scene because of what's going on during this scene. There's a lot of drama going on between Zendaya's character and Zac Efron's character, and Michelle Williams and Hugh Jackman's character. Those parts work during this scene, but for the overall effectiveness of the emotion that you're supposed to be feeling, it becomes distracting to me because of the fact that this is not the person singing this song, and it doesn't work that way for me anyway. Anybody else that doesn't actually know that it might be different. But since I knew that, because this was one of the best songs on the entire soundtrack for me, it was very upsetting for me that that's how it played out.
That's how it was presented to you.
Yes.
You heard the song like, oh, this song seems going to be amazing.
Yes.
And you went in there and it was like, that's it.
Yep.
This is what you give me.
Yes.
To match this. I'm checked out.
Yes. So when I realized that this was not going to be the movie that I was expecting, the first thought in my mind was, who could have directed this better? The thoughts that came to my mind was the same ones that we talked about the other day with the Queen movie, when we said who was going to be a better director for this.
Like Bill Condon.
Like Bill Condon, James Mangold. Those two names were the first ones that pop in my head.
I think even though it would have been too close to another one of his films that he earlier did, I think a Baz Luhrmann would have been better for The Greatest Showman.
That was another person that popped in my head, especially if you'd seen the opening number, that it could have been better.
But then he probably would have felt like it was too close to Moulin Rouge.
Probably. But anyway, Bill Condon, James Mangold, those are the two names that came in my head. The credits roll. Screenplay, Bill Condon. Produced by James Mangold.
They were there and they still made
They were there and this movie happened.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yo, okay. So that's solely the director then.
Well, and plus I had seen an article that James Mangold actually did some of the reshoots for this movie. There were actually reshoots for this movie. That makes me upset because it's like, what was the first cut of this?
If this is like the Justice League of musicals, somebody wants to see the James Mangold, Bill Condon cut. Petitions, give us the Condon cut.
I don't know, man. I don't know that this could have been made any better because of how this was also the P.T. Barnum was like one of the first real scoundrels of the show business, and they don't present him as that in this movie. There's so much they could have worked from on this movie that could have made this much more interesting.
Had it not been a musical, I think they would have touched on all those things.
No. I would have liked the musical element, especially with the songs that were in this. I want to make sure I'm crediting these right, because I know Justin Paul, who did the songs for La La Land, was a big part, but also Benj Pasek, that's his name, was also one of the songwriters and musicians for this that orchestrated this movie. So,
you got a subscriber.
Really cool.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, I was so. But the good news is, if it, for me anyway, how terrible this movie was. The soundtrack is still very good to me. I've still been listening to the soundtrack nonstop since seeing this movie, and I can still picture a better movie in my head, which is really cool.
Yeah, like
that can still happen.
My version of The Greatest Showman is so good because you'll never see it.
Because I mean, this was, and one of the biggest surprises for me was Michelle Williams. I had no clue she could sing, and whenever I saw her name on the soundtrack, I was like, oh, so it's probably going to be like a lighter song, something easier to sing, and it's not. She kills in this on this movie and in this soundtrack. Michelle Williams, excellent singer, and I really makes me want to hear more from her as a singer because she's already a fantastic actress, and I would really like to see her as hear a CD from her or an album from her, which would be really cool. And I mean, everybody, Zac Efron, and I had already seen all the High School Musical movies, the 2 and 3 that he actually sang in. So I already knew he can sing, but it still was very surprising that he's still that good. As he kills it in his performance. This was really a good performance from, like I said, everybody, all the singers, all the actors. It's just the director did not deliver in this movie, and I don't know if that was a studio decision or his decision, but it didn't seem like he had any sort of inspiration in this movie. And like I said, it lacked anything that would have added to these songs, added to this story to make this interesting. And it's very disappointing. So, with that being said, I actually had a higher rating in my head when I left this movie, but the more I've sat on it and the more I've let it stew and fester, I'm giving it a 5.5 out of 10. 5.5 out of 10.
That's higher than I thought it would be.
Well, it's still rotten to me. So
Yeah.
the soundtrack
The
is
way
still good, and there's
I was
still
thinking
some.
3-4.
No, I know, because the actors and the performances, everything is good about this movie except for the part where the director should have been there, and that's why I'm giving it just slightly over half.
Okay, all right.
Because there are parts that work in this movie.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Would it be something that I'd be interested in? 'Cause I love the circus.
I mean, if you like the circus, then no.
Oh.
Well, and that's that. If you like the circus,
Is it at least like? 'cause
it's still enjoyable, but you just have to lower your expectations
Because
a
like
bit.
you know how I hate movies where it's like it loses my interest.
Yeah, it won't really lose your interest. You won't get bored. You'll just be disappointed with the fact that there's just not that.
you could be watching a better movie right now.
Yes, that this just was not a better movie.
It sucks because
It had opportunity and it didn't meet it, but
circus,
still.
And then they go to do a movie about the circus that I liked, and then it's garbage. So
I mean, if you want to see these
my
songs,
happiness is
all the songs are from the soundtrack are in this movie. So if you just want to watch it for that, that's cool.
no.
But
I
and
won't
then
watch it for the circus.
I didn't mention her, but I should have. It's Keela Settle. Her song, "This Is Me," I still think that song could get nominated for an Oscar. I think it's still one of the best songs that I've seen in a movie, and it was well performed in this movie. That was another one that kind of worked.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like everything she was in worked well in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So she played the bearded lady in this movie. So, but either way, she actually had a lot of depth to her character, and she just worked. It was really well done.
I have a question.
What's up?
What was this cool story you were talking about before the show?
That's the part I was just telling you about the James Mangold thing.
That's the. Okay.
I thought that was an interesting thing to add to this.
Oh yeah, it was very interesting. Okay, yeah.
So,
But you made it seem like it's something happened to you personally. But
that was
cool.
it. That was it.
That
man.
is still pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
That
now.
I thought about.
when I was leaving work, he was leaving the theater and called me and was just so excited about that story.
Okay.
I was like, dude, I don't know who these people are. I really don't care.
I mean, yeah, you haven't watched Logan. You haven't watched
I watched
Beauty and the
Logan.
Beast.
I didn't know that. I don't know the directors' names or any of that.
You're not talking to your mic either, so nobody else can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Logan. I just didn't know like the dude you were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if I knew who they were, that'd be more hype. But it's pretty.
But James
Okay.
Mangold also did Walk the Line, which is a great
I like that
musical
movie.
biopic.
Mm-hmm.
But you also got to speak up because nobody can hear you.
Yeah, just
All
'cause
right.
we're talking like.
Yeah, I'm not even hearing myself through my headphones.
Well, because
so-
you're not talking into your microphone.
All right.
All right. So, anyways, like I said, 5.5 out of 10. That's
Okay.
the best I can give you. As it was probably a little closer to 7 before, but I sat on it, thought about it more, and the more I listen to the soundtrack, the more upset I am that this movie wasn't better. Oh man. So that's what it's going to be for me. And man, there was another thought I was going to have, or I had, that didn't come out. I don't know. But anyways, so guys, let me know if you saw this movie, what you thought about it. If you're still somehow interested in seeing it, also let me know why. And get the soundtrack. I still recommend this soundtrack. This is one of the best soundtracks that have come out in years, and I love every song on it. So I will continue to listen to the soundtrack, and probably, I mean, I don't know, I still might add the movie to my collection just because.
He is a glutton for punishment.
It's not. Oh, that's what I remember. Okay, there is because of how unbalanced this whole movie is. There was another opportunity for there to be like there's a fight scene that happens in this movie. It's like, oh, cool, a fight scene between the townsfolk and the circus people. I don't know what. Okay, anyways, and it's upset me so bad when it happened. Whenever they start to attack each other, there's one of the trapeze does like a trapeze flip and jumps onto the guy's shoulder, and the fattest man in the world guy bumps him with his stomach I'm like, oh my god, this is not how the tone the movie was setting, and this became a cartoon during this fight scene. It was like not even, so they couldn't even have a real fight scene in this movie. They had to turn it into a Popeye cartoon. That part infuriated me. Because
You
it's
say,
like,
oh, we about to get into some real drama here.
yes.
And Cirque du Soleil.
Yes. I was like, it turned into a circus act when it could have been a legitimate fight. I was like, oh my god, why did they do this?
Why did they do this to me?
So yeah, that was another thing that I wanted to add because it was a stupid decision on the directors. Okay, so we're going to move on to another movie.
Yes, another movie.